Welcome to the Simple Minds podcast, where we look to empower and encourage real conversation amongst men everywhere by unpacking topics on self-help, philosophy, and business.
Hello, welcome to the Simple Minds podcast. My name is Justin Bourne, and today I am your host. I'm welcomed by I don't even know how to describe us right now.
Pissed.
Yeah, I think so. I'm joined with a full table by the usual esteemed colleagues. Matt J. Hannum, hello.
Oh, hi. Hi, JB.
What's up?
Nice
How
to
are
see
you?
you.
Yeah, good to see you too, mate. Conrad, Kanye, Francis.
G'day.
Yeah, good to see you, mate. And Travis Hato, welcome.
Hey, day. Hey.
Oh, hey, Toad.
Hey, Tug.
How are you?
Yeah, how you going? Today we will be talking about our relationship with failure and also the journey of understanding our motivations of why we're doing what we're doing. Today is a bit of an interesting episode. I'm not sure. I mean, we didn't really discuss how we were going to share this whole birthday shit show, but you're probably all going to be confused if you're a regular listener of the order of what's happened. But today is my birthday, and so I have.
It's not that hard, mate. Like, they're allowed to know we recorded a couple episodes on the same day.
Yeah, but we really tried to mix it up last episode, so we were like not a loot. Anyway, with that being said, it's an occasion. I turned 30 today, and we had a surprise. I had a surprise birthday on the weekend, which was pretty cool. Can't say I've had one of them.
Didn't know it was
before.
coming.
Did not know it was coming.
Well, good surprising.
It was a surprise.
We're January every year, mate.
And I was gifted a beautiful drop, which I don't know why I'm sharing with you guys, but
I'm still considering why you're doing that.
yeah,
Me too.
I've decided to share. I thought, it's meant to be a good drop, share it with good company, but I don't know about that.
It says drink wise on the back.
So the drop that we have is a Glenmorangie. Did I say that right?
No, that's pretty good.
Okay,
I don't
close
know.
enough. Australian
I'll
version.
have to ask Glenn.
Yeah, we'll have to ask them. The Signet version, some pretty, I believe, top shelf whiskey, which was gifted to me by my in-laws and contribution from, I guess he's an in-law and a friend who picked it out. So Sam, thank you for picking it out, and for all the brothers and cousins for chipping in. So lads, you get to experience this with me today. So cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you, JB.
Thank you for
And
sharing.
Happy birthday.
I hope this is a nice drop.
Thank you for reaching to the top shelf, and you're not a short dude, so that's very useful.
To be honest, I prefer Woodstock.
Bit of real McCoy.
He's nice.
No, that's bloody brilliant.
That is.
It's got a little spice to it.
Feel like a bit.
Just even the bottle shape and the design is pretty amazing. If you ever get to see one.
It's pretty flash.
Produced and bottled in Scotland. It's 46%.
That is good.
Is either of those parts surprising to you?
The Scotland part, no. I was just filling in gaps while JB was enjoying his Scotch whiskey.
It's a nice drop.
That is a very nice drop. Look to finish that bottle off in the coming future.
Can someone just put this in my bag?
I'll have to put some vintage Coke with it, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it. All right. So today what I'd like to talk about, I came across a really great article written by Sahil Lavingia, and he shares his experience of building a startup and a SaaS product called Gumroad. And the title of it's a Medium blog post. The title is called "Reflecting on My Failure to Build a $1 billion Company." And this particular blog post really resonated with me through my experience over the last 12 months and 5 years building a business. And what I really loved about the blog post was going through his journey and being so open and vulnerable about why he initially thought he started it, going through the process of, I guess you could say, doing what is expected when you do a startup, getting all the funding, getting $1 million, all the seed funding through Silicon Valley, and doing, everything that is made out in these kind of stories. And it's kind of like he talks about living that dream and then going through the real challenges. And I think there's so much that we can take away from people sharing their failures and sharing, I guess, the dark side of these endeavors and what goes on. Because a lot of the time we only hear about the ones that succeed, and everyone's willing to put out what they're successful for and all of those type of things. And, with today, with social media and all that, we can easily look to everyone. Everyone can put on a facade and can make it look like they're doing really well. And it seems that we have a very unhealthy relationship, I guess, as we talked about last week, with time, but we also have a healthy relationship with failure. And this causes us to do things that we didn't think that we would do, push through things that we should probably give up, and come to a realization that we might be doing things for the wrong reasons. So I had to come to a realization as well over the last 12 months that I failed in my business in some aspects. I failed to manage it from a financial aspect properly. And I had to come and face that reality front on, and since have implemented a lot of measures to do so. I'm lucky that I didn't have to go through a very public expression of that journey, which Sahil talks about that he had to do being in the Silicon Valley startup world. A lot of it was all through the startup blogs and Twitter posts and all this other stuff. For context, the company that he was running grew to a 75 staff company. They raised something like, I can't remember the exact figure, $10 million. And pretty quickly after all of that, even though they were getting growth, they weren't getting the numbers that were expected from investors. And so very quickly he turned around and having to pretty much fire most of his staff, keeping a core team. Long story short, ended up just being himself and being a lifestyle business and losing a bit of the investors' money along the way, with some of the investors wanting to pull out and resell back the stock to him for essentially $1 after they invested a lot of money into it. And he had to go on a bit of a self journey to understand why he was doing what he was doing. He started out wanting to be a billionaire, and that's what he thought was the thing that you should do, and ended up pretty much coming to the realization that that's not what he really wanted, and really connecting with being, and this is probably why it really resonated with me, this article, he connected with being of service and understanding what his product really did and the customers that he served and the real impact that he had. And without the failure and without leaning into the failure, he wouldn't have, potentially have come to connecting with it on, that level. So what's really fascinating to me, in particularly in the Western world, and there's been a bit of a thread, I think, on our episodes of late, of having unhealthy relationships. But and it does connect a lot with the aspects of time and productivity, visioning, goal setting. Why do you think we have this really unhealthy relationship with failing and feeling like that, the world shouldn't know about it and it's something that we shouldn't do? Hado's scribbling, so I'm going to throw it to Hado.
I was just doodling. I think failure in the eyes of other people, or today we've created a beast of a generation with social media and that sort of stuff where everyone lives their best lives online, or, shows people their best lives. So they feel like they can't fail publicly. And if they do fail, it has to be, privately. And then if it's even look at the language of failure, what failure actually stands for. It's
What does it stand for?
yeah.
Failing.
What's that?
What does it stand for?
Well, failing. I'd like to see you got a definition there, Conrad?
I can find one.
He had the definition of failing in style on his screen.
But yeah, we certainly do have an unhealthy relationship with failure because we as a humanity and a race, we see it as a negative.
A weakness, especially in a person's character.
So look at that language, weakness, and that basically says
And character,
that
right?
we shouldn't have that. Whereas it's just a part of life and we really should.
Let's go to the etymology, the root
Etymology.
origin of the word.
Ooh, yes.
That's probably more interesting. Keep going, Trav.
No, I'm listening.
I'm searching.
He's got to look it up.
Now I've lost my train of thought.
Are you talking about the words being, the definitions being called?
The language is so strong. So I kind of, our attachment to the word.
Yeah, you look at the language and it's all negative. So, why would humanity have a positive outlook on failure when everything associated with the word and the words based around it and where I'm assuming where the word has come from is a negative and a negative impact.
14th century, 1580s, defect or fault, 1640s, it's all about non-conforming.
Defect or fault, non-conforming. And it's all negative language.
So it's a comparison. So when you're looking at that, it's the issue is of what it's being measured against. When you see yourself as a failure or when you're failing. So in the context of la vagina, Lavinia, what's his name?
Sahil.
Lavinia. I said that way too many times. Obviously, his measure was what he gave back to his shareholders or the people he raised capital to, which created the issue of non-delivery and, in essence, failure.
Yeah, he also talked about his metric in particular was to be a billionaire, and raising, becoming a $1 billion company. And that's kind of what he always aspired to do. So just going off what you said, though, what would be, just out of curiosity before we go further, what language would you use instead of failure? Because it is inevitable.
Learning opportunity.
100%. Yeah.
Learning opportunity, because really, failure is inevitable. You hit the nail on the head. Everyone fails.
Well, you don't get what you want, you get what you need.
Yeah, and it gives you an opportunity to learn. I'm going to blow your tyres up here, Conrad, but I met Conrad when I was...
Knock yourself out. Apparently I'm an affirmation person.
Despair?
When I was 18, 19.
Are you still a virgin?
No. And fuck, vagina virgin.
Yeah, what's on your mind today?
Yeah. Anyway,
it's a good scotch.
I remember one of our first deep conversations, and Conrad said to me, he goes, if you can learn from what I failed at, then you will be far greater and far better position than I was at your age. And that's something that's always stuck with me. And if I can learn from other people's failures or learning opportunities, so it's turning that negative into a positive, and it's learning from a failure, whether it's your failure or not, it doesn't matter, but it's giving you an opportunity to learn. So that's where the positive language comes from. So you're flipping on its head and it's like, well, it's not actually a failure. It's giving you the opportunity to learn something and either do it better next time or do it differently.
Or dampen the fall.
Yeah. What are we talking about business failures here specifically?
You can have it in love, you can have it in business, you can have it in work, you can have it in family.
You can, but what I was getting at is, like, for example, in sports, and this actually curls back to something that Gary Vee actually talks about a lot, is like an at-bat. In sports, you can fail, and let's say failing in a grand final of something doesn't necessarily mean, like, that's still not considered zero. That means, you got there, didn't quite get the top, you didn't quite win the thing, but, you've got another chance next year, and there's an obvious next chance to, I guess, at bat or, to keep playing, unless you're retiring or otherwise. I think it's so much or perceived as so much more final in things like business and also things like relationships, and that as well, I think often are considered pretty final. Like, if that was a big failure, It's a huge problem. It's not really looked at in sports or smaller things as being it's not that it's not important. It's just that there is another chance. And I feel like often businesses and things aren't looked at the same way, even though people do often go on to do it again. I just wanted to raise that because when you're talking about failure, there's things that I guess are more socially acceptable to fail at in a sense versus things that aren't.
Yeah, I agree. The tool that I use for that is you're asking the question, what's the worst case scenario? You know, like realistically, if I invest in this business or if I invest in this shares, what's the worst case scenario? Well, shit, I lose 10 grand. You know, is that a failure? Yes, no. Is it a learning opportunity? Yes. You know, is it the end of the world? No. You know?
No, that's you talk about that, and I've used the phrase, you know, is it going to kill you, or is it, you know, do you live another day to make another decision? Now, if you got another day, you can make another decision. You learn from that, and one of the toughest things I've had to deal with, or I would say toughest, one of the most challenging situations I had to deal with post my dad's passing was teaching my mum how to make decisions, because everything for her was fatal. I said, well, it's not taking your life. You might spend $1, and it might not be, you know, inevitably what you wanted post the purchase. I said, but you're going to get another chance to make another different decision next time you make a decision or have the decision to make.
I think that's sometimes what holds us back a lot as well, which is that
paralysis.
Is that we feel like we have to make the right call, and once we've made that call, that we can't change our mind or go back on it. You know, that whole terminology of saving face, and that at the end of the day, as we worked out in the last episode, none of it matters anyway. But we're so conditioned to care, obviously, what others think of us, that, you know, people will make a decision, or they'll go so far in business, or they're losing money, or they're causing stresses, and they just keep going because they don't want to be perceived as failing or to save face. Yet if it was all reframed of like, well, that was a learning opportunity, or you gave it a go, it would change, I think, so many things. And I'm just as guilty of this through building my own business. And even the reasons that I started out to start a business. You know, why I connected with this blog post so much was that I probably had a similar mindset starting out. You know, I'm going to build this big thing, and you know, went along a similar journey, but on a very micro scale compared to Sahel. And I almost feel like, you know, and in some respects, there are some people that I know, and we probably all know, that are on the other end of the spectrum where they don't even start their journey because their fear of failure. And I almost feel like you know, there's the bit of the conclusion that failure, a lot of people, we talk about vision, we talk about why, and a lot of people don't know what that is, and what their vision is and what their why is. And to be honest, that seems to be an evolving process for me. I was very lucky when I came out of school to kind of know what I wanted to go after, but it was probably for the wrong reasons at the time, reflecting. And a lot of people get stuck on this idea, and I feel like failure is a necessary step and a part of the process to actually understanding more of what your true vision is and what your true why is. How would you feel about that statement?
I don't disagree with you. I mean, I guess I don't disagree with you at all in that statement. The question is, how far do you have to fall to have that realisation, or have the realisation that allows you to move forward? That's more the issue. And I think through my own personal learning, and there's a lot of stubbornness that probably stopped me from learning from some of my situations earlier than what I could have or should have. But no, I agree with you. I think you have to go through a process of failure or failing.
So from what I
can't remember her name, but I recently read a piece
Paul
on
Chapman.
a young lady.
Sarah Chapman.
The wife or the daughter?
Glenn Chapman.
I'll never live that down.
Twiddle
mate.
S. Chapman.
I'll never live that down. But she's Silicon Valley high performer, you know, startup, tech, all that stuff. And
Do you know the business?
no,
It's
I
not
can't.
Sarah Blakely.
It must be about
It's
her,
Spanx.
her dad.
Spanx.
Yeah, her dad.
Sarah Blakely.
Sarah Blakely.
Sarah, thank
Because
you.
the articles talk. Yeah.
Yeah. So her dad used to ask her every night or once a week at the dinner table, "What have you failed at this week?" And that really stuck with me because it's quite incredible because it created a safe zone that enabled her to fail in life, quotation marks, and still know that she's still loved and still affirmed from her, from her inner circle. And that kind of blew me away because that's a thing that we don't create enough. A lot of people are a failure and they get, outcast, like Sahil on the, the blog pages and stuff. Oh, he's a failure in Silicon Valley because his startup is burning through cash and they've laid off 75% of their
By the
workforce.
way, on a completely random note, could be a great way to build a solo business. Get some investors in, spend like $70 million on a whole. I haven't really dug into his story, so this is not a personal one. But then lay everyone off and end up with a solo business. They sell it back to you for $1, and you've got like a pretty good
Lifestyle business.
pretty good lifestyle business. Yeah,
Well,
that's it. That's the extreme way.
That's finding the gold within the diamond in the rough. Isn't it?
Well,
No disrespect intended, but
before I go down the thread that I wanted to with Conrad, his website that he built was called Gumroad, which enables creators to sell their products and wares, I guess. And anyway, his
like
business.
gum tree for creators.
Yeah, kind of, I guess. I haven't heard of it. It must be a US thing. But anyway, his website has contributed now to $178 million worth of revenue to creators. That's how much money other people have made through his
Success,
website.
right?
Which is just crazy.
What a wanker.
Yeah, what a dick.
Yeah.
But the power of the impact that he had through...
How did he have that idea and we didn't?
I know, right?
We've got a room full of creatives here. What the fuck are we thinking about?
Well,
just can't do it.
the line that I really loved in the blog was create value rather than capture it. Yeah, and he's created the value there rather than trying to
Worry about claiming it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's true service, right? It's provided the forum.
Yeah.
Well, he only came to,
Zuckerberg did the same thing.
Well, what we've got to acknowledge is that
Ecosystem.
he started out with wanting, he just had an idea and he wanted to build $1 billion company. It was only through the process of failing that he connected with the impact and the value creation.
There
of
was
the
my
service
problem. I only
piece.
aimed for $1 million.
Yeah, the service that he had. But coming back to what you said
Stumble
before,
over a
Conrad, one of the questions that I had in preparing for this is a lot of people struggle with the humility, and I've definitely been there. And like as you said, I mean, it's a stubbornness to kind of keep pursuing, and there's a fine balance. How do you encourage people, or how do you assist people to be able to reflect and be open to acknowledge that they need to maybe change the ways or have the humility?
Well, humility to me, I mean, after working with the phrase being humble, I've become accustomed to understanding that without humility, you can't really learn. So if you want to learn from a failure or something that is challenging you or a fail situation, then you're only ever going to learn through being humble and allowing the situation to teach you. Because if you don't allow it to teach you, then you're arrogant and you'll make a bigger and deeper mistake. I've made many of those.
Is that like Alcoholics Anonymous? You have to have the humility to accept that you have,
Yeah.
being an alcoholic.
Yeah, that's step one.
It's that similar sort of thing, isn't
Yep.
it?
And would you say that the bigger the failure, the more opportunity for you to be humble is showing up for you?
I don't necessarily...
Because you made a reference of that you don't necessarily have to, go as far back, and you can learn from others as well. So do you think there's a relationship there?
I don't think it's a direct correlation to the size of the mistake, to the amount of humility that's needed. I think life's really simple. I think thank you is the most powerful word in the human language. That can be used for many different things. I say thank you. I pray and I say thank you at night, every night before I go to bed, and I say thank you in the morning for another opportunity. I think that's that to me is the precursor of allowing humility to sit with you. being ever accepting of what's being shown to you or taught to you. So I don't necessarily think that you have to. I don't think the size of the fall equates to the magnitude of the lesson.
Oh, you don't think there's a relationship?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it can be harder sometimes, but I don't think it's magnitude. I don't think there's a direct correlation.
Yeah, because kind of like what you were saying, Haydo. If you can learn a lot from others, but I think sometimes you have to learn the hard way.
Absolutely.
And you have to go through and feel the pain, which I felt like I had to do as well, to realise the lesson that someone else had learned.
Well, I think that's what Sam taught us, right? Easy way, hard way. Or
Sam Cawthorn.
Thanks, Trav.
All good.
Easy way. We learn the easy way, the hard way, or through tragedy. And I think, when Sam phrases it like that, learning the easy way or learning the hard way is not that bad.
Well, I feel like you always have the opportunity to learn it the easy way.
Of course you do.
So you always have the opportunity. Yes, JB, you say...
Very rarely do I learn it the easy way.
but the easy way is learning from someone else's mistakes.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
So that's
very
the easy
rarely.
way.
Doesn't matter how many times I'm told it. Do I actually learn it?
But
the easy way.
Arrogance, that's what it is.
For every failure or learning opportunity, you have the opportunity to learn it the easy way, the hard way, or through tragedy, for sure.
Interesting thought that just occurred is that if society had a different relationship with failure, do you think there'd be even more opportunity for people to learn the easy way?
Yeah, we would be much more progressive in a race.
Well, if you look at Spanx lady, that's exactly right. The reason why she
Sarah Blakely.
Sarah Blakely. Yeah, well, okay.
Interesting fact, if anyone hasn't seen it before, way back in the day, Richard Branson actually did a you can win $1 million type thing. Who's the best entrepreneur? And instead of doing the Donald Trump style stuff, they had to walk a plank between hot air balloons and all this crazy stuff. And she was a runner up, I think.
Was she?
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
Sorry, what were you saying?
No idea. I failed in holding my thought.
It failed. There you go. Well, I applaud you for that.
I feel like wearing some Spanx right now.
You are.
No,
because I guess a lot of our relationship with failure does come from our parents.
Of course it does. Yeah, I mean, we're given the framework of life from our parents lovingly, right? And they think they're doing the right thing. I remember growing up fearing dogs because my mum didn't like dogs. My dad had dogs growing up, but we were taught to fear dogs. Keep away from them. They're going to bite you, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't until we had a bad set of neighbours next to us. I was 18, 19 at the time. I said, no, shit, I'm going to get you a dog. Because I went and bought a baby Rottweiler. And true story.
Intense dog to
to go
delve into.
Yeah. You have to buy a dog that looks like you.
So we went after a Rottweiler. And sure enough, Mum, who grew up being scared of dogs and taught us to fear dogs, wasn't scared of a dog. She ended up, and Magic grew to 62 kilos. That's fair size for a dog.
Magic. 62 kilos.
62 kilo Rottweiler. And
weighs more than me.
And your mum wasn't scared of him. So it's funny the stories we tell ourselves, right? I mean, and yes, our parents do set us up pretty fucking badly when it comes to failure. I mean, Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. I wish we knew this stuff earlier.
No, I know. So how do we change our relationship with it?
Be open. Just be open. Be open on life's going to give you aces and jokers, right? It's going to give you both sides of the deck. You've got to be wise enough to know what to do with the card you get dealt. That's the only thing you can pray for and hope for. And in the lacking of the wisdom, seek consultation with others that have experienced it, whether it be through YouTube or wherever you want to go, God forbid,
TikTok.
Having a fucking conversation with someone. But there is enough out there. We are not walking this planet for the first fucking time.
I'm gonna say it's a bit cliche, but go to the self-love piece, because if you're okay with yourself, then you're not going to really care what the external factors are thinking about you. And that's really what you.
And that's 90% of failure.
Yeah,
That's how you view how the world views you.
Because you assume that the world is thinking ill of you, but really the world just doesn't care most
give
of the
a
time.
shit.
It doesn't care. So yeah, I'd probably take it to that end of the spectrum as well. That sort of self-love piece. If you're okay with you, and then you're not seeking external affirmation, and you're not needing that external affirmation, so for when you do fail or have a learning opportunity, you're not assuming that the world is judging you.
I think it's been said, wise in your 30s. I mean, that's pretty powerful. I think what you just said, and can completely relate to that as well. And even something that Conrad just said as well is knowing when to reach out for help and advice, and leaning on your proximity and the people
That's humility too, right?
around you, and just going, look, I don't know what I'm doing here. I really don't know what's going. I don't know what I'm doing. This is the situation that we're in, and I need some guidance on to move forward. And as you pointed out, I mean, no problem exists in a vacuum, and no problem is unique. Unfortunately, you are not that special.
Not
the
that
problem happening to you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
You ain't that fucking unique.
But it's hard for us to learn and realize, that we fit. I mean, the smallest problem can be the biggest problem to that individual at any one time.
That's always going to be the issue, right?
Yeah.
What's small to me might be massive to you, and there's no right or wrong in that. That is just what it is.
I think having continuing to practice on that, the fact is that there is no right or wrong. In order to get there, you've got to work on your self-love, self-worth. And if you can layer all in that with, I think, understanding what your core motivations are. Because from my recent experience, tying my expectation to the outcome and then relaying it back to what my motivation was, I came to a realization that with my business, I thought I was building a business for me, but I came to realize I was building it like for validation from my old boy, which smacked me in the face. And the whole time,
Your old boy or the validation?
both. And came to the realization that, and I was trying to tell myself a lie the whole time. Just, I'm doing it for this reason and that reason. And I guess it's that Alcohol's Anonymous piece, right? Acknowledging, okay. And then that way I could reframe the motivation to be able to be of service and to provide value, and connecting with the true why you're doing what you're doing. And I know we kind of have thrashed that on this podcast, but it is so important to continue to reflect on, well, why am I doing this? What am I doing it for? What is the purpose of this, and how's it serving me? Because I think a lot of people out there are running businesses for the wrong reasons.
Well, hang on a sec. Let's reframe that in a sense that it's not the wrong reasons. It may not be the truest of true reasons.
That's a fair call.
Because whatever they're doing for the right reason.
At the time.
Yeah, because learning is always going to be the byproduct.
That's very true.
I think that's the most important thing to remember. Really,
Yeah, just be open to the learning.
No matter what you do,
Go on the journey.
There's an ability to learn from anything and everything.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the most beautiful things in life. If you give yourself the time to sit back and allow yourself to learn. I mean, give me the opportunity to sit back and review and spend time, and as much time as I can. And I think that's the most beautiful place that you spend your time. You could argue you could fill up with plenty of other things, but you sit there and reflect and review and just take in what's going on around you. It's one of the most profound moments you'll ever get.
Because I guess at the end of the day as well, it's only a failure if you deem it to be.
True.
It's your...
Well, usually is only your view.
It is. Yeah. Well, you guys have all done that work with William, right? Where you look at yourself, you look at one step away, and you look at like the world looking at it, and it's the further away you get from the situation, no one gives a fuck.
And because there's a very profound moment, which I think we've shared on the podcast. I'm sure you won't mind if I bring it up, Matt, but around when I think we were having a visioning exercise at Conrad's office. And at the time, you're building an agency at the moment, and there was this big expectation of kind of being. I think it came off the back of we went and saw Gary V in very tight twice in a pretty short time frame, and there was this kind of expectation of being at that level. And I'm speaking on your behalf here, so I should probably hand it over to you to explain, but. There was that relationship of obviously that comparison piece, and so talk us through that, and why did that hit you so much? Because I feel like that relates to what we're talking about, because that sets you on a bit of, once you came to the realization, right, that sets you on a bit of a different path, yeah, and where you're at now is very different to where you were even after that realization, yeah.
Yeah, It's not the comparison that hit me. It was more the...
You'll be tearful that day from what I remember.
I did. Yeah, no, I did.
I'm here for you, bro.
Because it's not the comparison. What it is, and we've talked about it before, is that we have this incredible ability to be disillusioned and just to basically just create this like bullshit story, because we're fucking amazing storytellers, right?
Yeah.
Tell us this bullshit story of where we're really at. And so it wasn't so much the Gary comparison, because I never wanted that comparison, but it was by getting lost in all the bullshit, what am I not doing that I should have been doing? Or where am I not focusing, and what am I allowing to happen that shouldn't have been the case? So that's probably more to it. I had no burning desire to be a Gary V, but in some ways you do compare, and everyone does. You know, all the people that know of Gary, Gary's amazing. Everyone's sort of comparing in a different degree, but it wasn't that. It was that future pacing of such, like if I'm pointing at this direction, it's okay to let these responsibilities go right now because I'm going to be there. So it's not quite what you're saying, but it was more the realization of where am I letting myself down in what my true responsibilities are, not what am I not achieving based on my lofty goals. Is that fair? Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, the way that from what I've obviously experienced and know is that the motivations have changed a little bit, and connecting with, I guess, the truer vision through going through those, trials and, tribulations.
Well, Sahil's motivation, what does he say? Where did my singular focus on building $1 billion company come from in the first place? I think I inherited it from a society that worships wealth. I don't think it's a coincidence that Bill Gates was my all-time hero and the world's richest person. Ever since I remember, I've equated success with net worth. If I heard someone say that person's really successful, I didn't assume that they were improving the well-being of others around them, but they'd found a way to make a ton of cash. Yeah, so that was his motivation, which he had to learn to deal with it actually not being his true motivation.
And I think that
it's the unlearning. When you come to that realization of how you're programmed, it's the winding back of that bullshit that becomes the job. And we reach that, human beings, guys like you, you three and myself, we get to a point where life doesn't fucking serve us or hasn't served us, and we start peeling back what we were taught to give ourselves or reestablish what we really want. And I think that's failure in a part, because it's gonna give you a situation that needs to be considered big enough to make you go back and change some of those meanings and definitions that you've given yourselves, or that your family and friends have given you. With him, it's clearly significant.
Well, that's the goal, really, isn't it? It's the meaning and the definitions you've applied to all of this.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to go do the work, because I think I had a similar relationship to what Sahil, which is why I connected a lot with this.
I think we all have, mate.
Yeah,
I mean, I know I was there.
As blokes.
Mine was Buffett. I mean, whoever's put in front of you at the time.
Jesus, you went with Buffett? Seriously, is there anyone else in the world that you... would be more difficult to follow?
Well, it wasn't to follow. It's aspirational. The guy.
Yeah, I don't disagree that he's like
Gary V's not too far.
Gary V's not a
say it.
patch off.
Different way.
Aim for the stars, land among the moons.
Yeah, I reckon there's more than one moon, by the way. But just depends which one switched on. The truth really becomes the the person you want to become is what gets revealed when you deal with tough situations. Do you want to be the person that goes down that slide and becomes the person that complains, whinges, bitches, complains, or do you want to be the person that rises up from the ashes? And that's the choice you get in any given moment through those time frames. And I remember having one of those moments and choosing that I didn't want to be that person that whinge, bitched, and complained.
Well, failure gives you the opportunity to become either the victim or the creator.
Yeah. There's only one or two paths, and there's no middle.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really, really powerful of it. And even then, like, say, going after the fame or going after building $1 million company and, say, achieving that and then realizing that's just not what you want, right? How amazing would it be to have that realization early to then, realize what your truer desires are? How sad would it be to continue to live in that company or that state for another 10, 25 years, to then only realize, well, I was hating it the whole time because I was trying to satisfy my definition of what success was for everyone else, and that it was wealth, and that's my metric that I'm using.
But when you have that, it's such a well, it could go one of two ways. It could be really empowering or really disempowering, because you think, oh, shit, I've wasted my time chasing something that really wasn't mine or was wrong or blah, 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 blah. So even in that moment of realisation, you get further opportunity to go down that victim or creator path.
I think it's a really prevalent thing in society. Like, let's look at Marco's story. I'm sure he doesn't mind us talking.
Santiago.
Yeah, but he became an engineer because of his father. I was just talking to him about it the other day, and I said, oh, why'd you get into petroleum engineering? And he goes, I was in engineering, then I didn't really want to do the type of engineering I was in, but I wanted my credits to transfer over. So he chose petroleum engineering.
And his grandfather.
Yeah.
So his father and grandfather.
Yeah, and then he's gone on a massive change, and now he's doing videography, and he's absolutely crushing it. And it's a very common story in, just to piggyback on what you were talking about there.
Yep.
Well, I think it comes down to the choice, right? Acknowledging that those patterns may exist, and then acknowledging them, and then choosing which path do you want to go. Because I think to layer all of this, there is no right or wrong which way you go or what you do. Like if you want to follow, say, in your father's footsteps or your mother's footsteps or whatever, that is like amazing. I think the fundamental is understanding, is that genuinely what your truest desire is, or are you doing it for someone else? Because
it's finding the depth of influence, right? I mean,
I was going to say, you followed your dad's footsteps, didn't you?
No, well, he was a builder, and he did everything he could to try and force me away from it.
But that's what you like. You like the building stuff. You like to develop.
Yeah, I do like the property and the building stuff, but that's one example. But one other that just comes to mind, and we often see this in, on TV or movies, but it's just common generally, is like, for example, like law enforcement and other people. How often do you hear like the third generation cop or
Americans in their military, mate?
Yeah, in the military as well. And it's like it's almost like that was well and truly predetermined before that happened. And a good friend of mine is a pilot, and he was named, his middle name effectively means to fly. And his dad was in the Air Force, and he's a pilot for a major carrier now. And it was good or bad. It was not his decision necessarily. Doesn't mean he doesn't love it. He does, but it was predetermined.
Look at me. I am the captain now.
And on that note, we'll
yeah, it's powerful. I mean, it was the Christmas holidays and New Year's and stuff, and my grandparents were over from Adelaide. And I'm grateful that 3 of the 4 of my grandparents are still alive and with us today. And I had an opportunity to speak with my dad's dad. And I asked him, was digging into and given with some of the knowledge that I've been blessed with over the last couple of years, I was asking him some, interesting questions. And it became obvious to me how much he had... how our great-granddad has had so much influence and through all the males, right? And one of the funny things was that my granddad, he took a safe route for 45 years because his dad took a really risky route and screwed over the family, and he passed away really early. So as a compensating approach, he went the safe route for 40 years. And then eventually he decided to run his, start his own business. And I asked him, I was like, well, what would be the one thing you would have, my granddad, I asked him, I was like, what would be the one thing you would have done different in your life if you could? And he goes, I would have started my business earlier and taken more of the risk. But because he was so scarred and obviously still had that burden from his granddad, that was ingrained in him. And I think, we live in a time now where if we truly want to have the humility to accept the value and the learnings and the stories that are shared through the internet, social media and YouTube, and the amount of information that people are putting out there, we live in a really amazing time in some respects. There are obviously the negatives, which we've talked about as well. But if you're willing to see the lessons of others, a lot of our fathers and our granddads and that didn't have the access to that, and they only knew what they knew. But I guess in today's world, we have that opportunity everyone has an opportunity to make a choice, but depending on which lens you want to put it, failure, an opportunity to learn, the language that we use. All I can encourage through my own journey is acknowledge that it's okay to fail. It's part of the process. And if anything, I feel like for people who are feeling like they're lost and they don't know what their purpose or what their why or whatever that may be, the more you fail, the closer you may get to understanding, not finding what that really is. And I'm looking forward to change my relationship with failure further in the future, and I really love the shares that you guys have provided today, and I hope to anyone listening, it encourages you to look back over the last couple of years, or even in your situation right now, and realizing that it's okay to I've now lost my train of thought, but anyway, on that, it's okay to fail. Thanks, gentlemen. That was a great drop.
Man.
Thanks for bringing the value.
That was a great drop. Yeah, but thanks for bringing that.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
No
and thank you for bringing the Scotch whiskey for your birthday.
Such a nice bottle.
Isn't
Beautiful.
it? Beautiful.
Beautiful, mate.
Beautiful, mate.
Like,
Hey-to.
subscribe, share.
Sometimes
Don't
I forget we're
forget to do
Aussies.
That's it.
Who forgets we're Aussies?
No one. I was just reminding everyone else. What are these?
We got
weird-
3 listeners, don't we?
Yeah, you, me, and you.
You, me.
You listen to it twice, don't you? 2 different platforms.
I just do it to get the numbers up.
Get those stats up.
You listen on iTunes, then you go listen on Spotify.
I listen to it once and then I let it play when I'm sleeping on another one.
Yep. Fantastic.
Right.
So we're up to 5 downloads per episode now.
Yeah.
I'm doing my bit, people.
Big stuff. We're tackling the big stuff. All right.
Thanks, JB.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Simple Minds podcast. If you like our show and want to know more, then check out our website at simplemindspodcast.com. If you like, you can even leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or share this episode with a friend. The Simple Minds podcast is also on Facebook, Insta, and for those that like to keep things formal, LinkedIn. So follow us there if you want to keep up with the latest updates from the show. See you next week.